Imagine the hush of twilight settling over a quiet garden. The day exhales its last breath of warmth, and somewhere between the rustle of leaves and the fading hum of insects, the world begins to slow. You can almost hear it, that faint living murmur of green things breathing, growing and dreaming in their own patient time. Every leaf is a small pulse of life, every blade of grass, a soft thought unfolding toward the light. Hey guys, tonight we're wandering into the quiet heart of the living world, the kingdom of plants. Not the way you might see them rushing past a car window or sitting silently on a windowsill, but as they truly are, ancient architects of air companions of our every breath, and the silent keepers of calm that have been here long before us. We'll explore the strange, magical ways plants shape both the planet and the human mind, and how their presence can soothe something deep within us. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're joining me tonight from somewhere across the world, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these quiet journeys travel, from candlelit rooms to city balconies, from sleepless nights to peaceful mornings. Now, let your shoulders drop. Let your breathing fall into rhythm. The day is behind you, the night is here, and all around the green world waits in stillness, patient, ancient, and aware, in ways that science is only beginning to understand. Plants are often treated as background scenery for the lives of animals, color for our cities, decoration for our homes. But the truth is, they are the atmosphere we breathe, the stability of soil, the quiet machinery that turns sunlight into life. Long before the first animals stirred in the sea, plants had already mastered a form of alchemy, the transformation of light into food. Through the tiny chloroplasts in their cells, they take photons, pure fragments of sunlight, and weave them into sugar, oxygen, and energy. It's a miracle so constant we forget it's happening. And yet every breath you take right now was made possible by some green being somewhere turning light into air. When you walk through a forest, your lungs and the leaves are in conversation. You exhale carbon dioxide, and they inhale it. They exhale oxygen, and you breathe it in. The exchange is ancient and perfect, a cycle that began hundreds of millions of years ago and still continues in silence. In a way, every living thing is connected through this invisible dialogue. You are not separate from the forest outside your window. You are one half of its breath. Scientists call this relationship symbiosis, but that word doesn't quite capture the poetry of it. It is less a contract than a love story written in chemistry and time. Our bodies evolved to crave the colors of nature, the deep greens and soft browns that signal safety, water, and nourishment. Psychologists have found that even a glimpse of foliage can lower blood pressure and slow the heart. Hospital patients recover faster when they can see trees through their windows. People who live near parks report less anxiety, fewer sleepless nights. Something about the sight of plants reaches into the oldest parts of the brain, the ones that remember shelter, food, and peace. Perhaps that's why gardens have always been our sanctuaries. From the hanging gardens of Babylon to the temples of Kyoto, humanity has built green spaces wherever we've lived, not just for beauty, but for balance. The act of tending to plants slows the mind. Time stretches. Soil under the fingernails, the scent of leaves in sunlight, the slow miracle of a bud opening. These things remind us of patience, of the steady rhythm beneath all life. Even in modern life, surrounded by screens and noise, we still seek that rhythm. Maybe that's why houseplants have become so beloved again. Each one turns a corner of the home into a small ecosystem, a patch of calm that breathes with you. Some studies show that rooms filled with greenery can purify air, reduce stress hormones, even improve concentration. But beyond science, there's something spiritual about sharing space with a living thing. that asks for so little: a bit of water, a slant of light and time. When you sit near a plant and watch its leaves move subtly in the air, you begin to realize that motion and stillness aren't opposites. Plants live in a different tempo, slower, quieter, yet intensely alive. A sunflower turns its face with the sun not in minutes, but in hours, tracing an invisible arc across the sky. Roots spread through the soil, like thought through memory, reaching, testing, adapting. Life doesn't always have to be fast to be full. There's an old Japanese saying, "The pine tree by the temple gate is a philosopher, the moss on the stone, a poet." Maybe that's true. Maybe each plant holds a lesson about how to exist, to take only what's needed, to give back more than we receive, and to keep growing even in the smallest patch of light. When we slow down enough to notice, the green world begins to speak, not in words, but in gestures, a tilt toward warmth, a shimmer of dew, a quiet resilience that mirrors what we long for in ourselves. If you close your eyes now, you might picture a forest at dusk. The air smells of pine and earth. You can hear water somewhere nearby, moving softly over stones. Above you, branches shift against the fading light. The forest doesn't ask for attention. It simply exists, generous and calm. That calm seeps into you, reminding you that you too are part of this cycle, breathing, resting, waiting for morning. Plants do not hurry. They do not chase the next moment. They simply grow inch by inch, leaf by leaf, content to be where they are. And perhaps that is their greatest secret: peace is not something to seek. It is something to grow patiently within ourselves, as quietly as a seed in the dark. Tonight, as you listen, remember that every breath is shared with a forest somewhere, every heartbeat in rhythm with the unseen pulse of green life. The world is breathing with you. The leaves are whispering their slow wisdom, and somewhere in that shared silence between you and the earth, peace begins to root. If you were to stand in the middle of a quiet forest and hold your breath, you might swear that everything around you is still. But listen closely, not with your ears, but with that quiet sense that lives somewhere behind thought, and you'll feel it. The forest is never silent. Beneath the hush of air and the faint rustle of branches, there is communication. A soft and endless dialogue, leaf to leaf, root to root. It's not a sound we can hear, not a language we can translate, but it's happening all the same. For centuries, people imagined plants as passive beings, decorations in the theater of life. But now, science is beginning to prove what intuition and poetry always suggested: plants are listeners, speakers, and rememberers. They send messages through scent, color, vibration, and chemistry. They warn one another of danger. They share resources. They change their behavior in response to touch, to sound, even to the presence of other species. It's a kind of communication so different from ours that we barely recognize it, and yet it shapes the living world. When a caterpillar chews on a leaf, the wounded plant releases a faint cloud of chemicals, distress signals carried on the wind. Nearby plants detect these airborne messages and respond, strengthening their own defenses before the threat arrives. Some release tannins to make their leaves bitter. Others produce compounds that attract predators to the insects feeding on them. It's not emotion in the human sense, but there is awareness, coordination, intention, written in chemistry. What we call instinct might for them be conversation. Under the ground, the dialogue deepens. Through networks of fine fungal threads, the mycorrhizae roots whisper in molecular Morse code. Carbon, nitrogen, and minerals flow from one plant to another. A shaded sapling might receive extra sugars from a tall elder tree. A mother tree may send warnings through the fungal web when drought comes, allowing others to prepare. The forest, it turns out, behaves less like a collection of individuals and more like a single organism, a living city built of roots and empathy. Scientists once mocked the idea of plant communication. The phrase, "talking trees," sounded like fantasy. But now, with decades of evidence, we know better. In labs, sensitive microphones record the soft crackles plants make when stressed by heat or thirst, tiny acoustic signals like sighs released into the air. Under ultraviolet light, leaves pulse faintly as they release volatile compounds. In slow motion, we see plants reacting to sound waves, leaning toward gentle music recoiling from harsh vibrations. Every leaf is an antenna tuned not to words, but to light, water, and movement. The green of chlorophyll doesn't just catch sunlight, it catches information. It measures the length of the day, the angle of shadows, the humidity in the breeze. The leaves know when dawn is coming long before the first ray touches them, adjusting their pores in anticipation. They sense when rain is near folding or turning to protect delicate surfaces, and they remember. Experiments with the Mimosa pudica, the shy plant that folds its leaves when touched, show that after repeated harmless touches, it stops reacting. It learns that the stimulus is not a threat. Days later, it still remembers conserving energy for real dangers. For a being without a brain, that is astonishing. The memory is stored not in neurons, but in changes to calcium channels, electric patterns, and chemical traces within cells. A form of wisdom written into matter itself. Perhaps that's the quiet genius of plants. They teach us that intelligence doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to shout or argue or flash in circuits. It can be patient. It can take the shape of a vine, slowly choosing where to climb, or a leaf deciding how much water to keep. Intelligence here is not a storm, but a tide. Our ancestors sensed this long before microscopes or DNA. In myths from every culture, trees and flowers are given voices. The whispering willows of China, the talking oaks of Greece, the sacred Bodhi tree where the Buddha found enlightenment. These stories weren't wrong, only poetic. The ancients intuited what modern science now measures, that plants exist in conversation with the world, participating in a dialogue older than humanity itself. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine being one of them. Feel the sunlight warming your skin, the slow rhythm of day and night flowing through you. Imagine listening through your roots, feeling the footsteps of rain as it lands, sensing the pull of gravity like a soft hand guiding your growth. You don't need to move to know. You don't need to speak to be heard. In your stillness lies understanding. And isn't that what peace truly is? To be aware without strain, to respond without haste, to belong to a system so vast and balanced that every gesture matters, even if no one sees it. The leaves speak in the language of balance, a language we once knew before cities and clocks drowned it out. But it's still there, waiting in the green silence around us. So next time you walk past a tree, pause for a heartbeat. The wind moving through its branches is not just sound, it's a translation, a hint of conversation between worlds. The rustle is not random, it's the breath of the planet itself reminding you to listen, to slow down, to remember that silence is never empty. For somewhere in that silence, the leaves are still speaking to the light, to the soil, and perhaps in their own quiet way to you. Take a deep breath. Feel the air as it moves into your lungs, cool, invisible, yet full of life. Every molecule of oxygen that enters your blood has already passed through a leaf somewhere. You might be sitting in a city miles from the nearest forest, but what you breathe now once drifted through the canopy of trees, through meadows of grass, through the secret machinery of green life. The breath you take is not just yours. It's shared, an ancient exchange that connects you to every tree, every blade, every root that has ever lived. Plants and humans have always been partners in this invisible rhythm. When you exhale, you release carbon dioxide, the very element that plants hunger for. And when they exhale, they gift you oxygen in return. It's a perfect, quiet conversation. You give them your tired breath, and they turn it into something new, something alive. The balance between your body and the green world is not a metaphor. It is a living equation written across the face of the planet, a collaboration billions of years in the making. If you could shrink yourself small enough to drift inside a leaf, you'd see this miracle unfolding. Inside each green cell are tiny structures called chloroplasts, ancient descendants of free-living bacteria that learned long ago to capture sunlight. They take photons that have traveled across millions of miles of space and turn them into chemical energy, weaving together carbon, water, and light into the very substance of life. This process, photosynthesis, doesn't just sustain plants, it sustains the air itself. Every tree, every fern, every patch of moss on a stone is part of this endless breathing. Some scientists call it the planet's lungs, but that doesn't quite capture it. The Earth doesn't breathe like we do, in and out, but rather, all at once, a billion sighs in every direction. A slow respiration that binds oceans, forests, and clouds into one continuous pulse. At dawn, leaves open their pores, tiny mouths called stomata, and begin the daily rhythm. Sunlight filters through, activating the hidden green engines inside. Water rises through roots, like blood through veins. The tree exhales oxygen, invisible but immense, feeding every creature around it. At dusk, as light fades, the process slows. The forest's breath deepens, quiets, and waits for morning again. If you stand in a forest long enough, you might feel this rhythm inside yourself. Your breathing begins to mirror it, slower, softer, steadier. There's a reason why meditation feels easier among trees. The mind recognizes something familiar there, something ancient and trustworthy. Perhaps the brain, built from atoms once inside leaves, remembers what it means to breathe with the world instead of against it. It's humbling to realize that much of the oxygen you inhale doesn't even come from land but from the ocean. Microscopic algae, tiny green drifters called phytoplankton, float beneath the waves, performing the same quiet magic as trees. They are the unsung lungs of the planet, producing more than half the oxygen on Earth. Every breath you take carries whispers from the sea, from invisible forests swaying in sunlight beneath the waves. And when you exhale, the carbon you release may one day find its way back into a plant's leaf, into a stem, into a seed. Life recycles itself endlessly in this dance of air. The carbon in your blood once belonged to stars, then to ancient ferns, then perhaps to a tree that burned, releasing it again into the sky. You are breathing starlight filtered through leaves. For most of human history, this connection was sacred. The Egyptians spoke of the breath of Ra, the divine air that animated all things. In Hindu philosophy, prana is the life force that flows through every living being, carried by breath. The Greeks called it pneuma, the Chinese, qi. Different words for the same truth, that to breathe is to share in the vitality of the universe. Modern science too reveals a kind of poetry in this exchange. A mature tree can produce enough oxygen each year for several people to breathe. A single acre of rainforest exhales more life than an entire city consumes. The Amazon alone recycles billions of tons of air breathing, not just for itself but for the planet. When we cut down a forest, we don't just lose trees, we lose part of our own breath. There's a beautiful symmetry in this, an unspoken promise between species. Plants anchor us to the earth, but they also tether us to the cosmos. The carbon in every leaf comes from the sky, drawn down, molecule by molecule, turned into form, then released again. It's a cycle of creation so elegant that even silence can't contain it. The air we share is a memory of sunlight, of rain, of ancient forests long turned to stone. Tonight, as you breathe, imagine tracing the air back to its source. Maybe it began in the lungs of a whale surfacing at dawn. Maybe it drifted from a cedar forest in Japan or a field of lavender in France. Maybe it came from a single leaf trembling in a storm half a world away. You'll never know, and that's the wonder of it. Every breath is a mystery shared among all living things. So take another breath, slow and gentle. Feel it move through you like a tide. You are not separate from this rhythm. You are a note in the song of the world, rising and falling, with the wind, with the trees, with the unseen ocean of air that holds us all. And somewhere in that rhythm, in that hidden breath beneath your own peace, begins to grow. The next time you watch a garden waking under the morning light, notice how everything seems to happen in order. The tulips open first, like tiny cups catching the dawn. The daisies follow, turning their faces upward. The night-blooming jasmine closes, retreating into fragrance and shadow. It's as if every flower is listening to some invisible conductor, a rhythm older than time itself. For centuries, people thought these movements were just reactions to sunlight. But plants don't simply wait for light, they anticipate it. Even when kept in complete darkness, their leaves still rise and fall on schedule. Their buds still open and close as if the sun were shining. That's because hidden within their cells, every plant carries a clock, not made of gears or metal, but of molecules and rhythm. This inner clock, known to science as the circadian rhythm, governs nearly everything a plant does. It tells a sunflower when to face east and when to bow its head toward the west. It tells a leaf when to release oxygen and when to rest. It even guides the timing of flowering, ensuring that a plant blooms at the perfect moment to attract pollinators. In a way, each plant lives by the heartbeat of the planet. The same 24-hour cycle that stirs our own sleep and wakefulness flows through them too. They don't measure time by seconds or hours, but by the slow changes in light and temperature, by the memory of days passing. Even in total darkness, plants keep their rhythm, proof that they don't just respond to the world, they remember it. Long before scientists discovered this, humans could already read the language of floral time. In the 18th century, the Swedish botanist Carl Linnaeus created what he called a flower clock. By arranging different species in a garden according to the hours they opened or closed, one could tell the time simply by looking. At dawn, the dandelions would bloom. By mid-morning, the marigolds. At noon, the flax. By evening, they'd close again, and night-blooming flowers would take their place. It was not a machine, but a living symphony, each petal marking the hour. Why do plants need this sense of time? Because life for them is about balance between light and dark water, and air growth and rest. To photosynthesize efficiently, they must know when sunlight will return. To conserve energy, they must prepare for night. The circadian rhythm acts like a gentle whisper inside every cell, synchronizing their internal world with the turning of the earth. Some scientists believe this clock may even help plants communicate with each other. When one leaf begins to open or release certain scents, others nearby adjust their own timing, like musicians tuning before a song. The result is harmony, an entire ecosystem moving in rhythm with the sun and moon. It's humbling to realize that we too carry such clocks inside us. The same cycle of light and dark that guides the flower also guides our heartbeat, our sleep, our hormones, our moods. When we stay awake deep into the night under artificial light, we drift away from that rhythm. No wonder we feel restless or tired. Nature's timing is not just about plants. It's about us remembering how to move in step with life again. Think about how good it feels to wake with the sunrise, to stretch as golden light spills across the floor. Or how peaceful it is to watch the sun set and feel your body begin to slow. That isn't just preference, it's biology. The plants around you are doing the same thing. The vines by the window, the herbs on your shelf, even the weeds outside your door are following the same invisible metronome, turning toward the same light that guides your heartbeat. When you spend time among them, your body unconsciously begins to match their rhythm. Studies show that people who garden or walk in nature regularly tend to sleep better, breathe deeper, and recover faster from stress. It's as if being near plants helps reset the clock inside us, syncing our internal timepiece to the ancient pulse of the earth. In Japan, where the practice of Shinrin-yoku forest bathing began, scientists discovered that spending just a few hours among trees can realign human circadian rhythms, lowering cortisol and stabilizing heart rate. The body remembers even when the mind forgets. Surrounded by living things that move with the sun, we begin to find our own natural timing again. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the world breathing through its day. The dawn birds begin to sing. The mist fades from the leaves. Flowers unfold like slow fireworks of color. Bees begin their dance. By noon, the air hums with warmth and life. As evening approaches, petals close, shadows lengthen, and the planet exhales. Even in the deepest night, roots stir beneath the soil, preparing for morning. Somewhere inside you, that same rhythm continues, a whisper from your ancestors, from the first green cells that learned to dance with the Sunday. To live in peace is to live in time with that rhythm, to wake when the flowers open, to rest when the petals fold, to trust that the light will return, because it always does. The clock keeps ticking in silence. The flowers know it, and if you listen closely enough, so will you. Have you ever noticed how a plant seems to lean toward a window, as if drawn by some invisible hand? A potted vine bending toward morning light. A sunflower tracing the sun's arc across the sky. These quiet gestures are not accidents. They are acts of longing written in green. Every plant, from the smallest sprout to the tallest redwood, is engaged in a slow, lifelong pursuit of light. And in that pursuit lies something profoundly human, the desire to reach, to grow, to find warmth amid the dark. Scientists call this behavior phototropism, the ability of plants to sense and move toward light. But that sterile word hardly captures the poetry of it. Imagine a tree in the middle of a dense forest. Above it, layers of leaves block most of the sunlight. Yet somehow, over years, it twists its trunk, stretches its branches, and reshapes itself to find an opening where the light falls. It waits, it calculates, it endures. When finally a storm knocks down an old tree and a beam of sun pierces the canopy, the young one is ready. It has dreamed of that moment for decades. Plants don't have eyes, yet they see in their own way. Inside their cells are molecules that react to light, tiny sensors called photoreceptors. These receptors can tell not just how bright the light is, but what color it is, where it comes from, and how long it lasts. When light strikes one side of a stem, hormones like auxin migrate to the other side, stimulating growth there. The shaded side grows faster, bending the plant toward brightness. It's like a dance, guided by invisible music. If you watch a time-lapse of plants growing, it's astonishing. A seedling arcs upward, trembling like a hand reaching for the sky. Leaves unfurl in spirals, tracing sacred geometries. Found everywhere in nature, the same spirals that shape galaxies and seashells. There's intelligence in that pattern, not conscious thought, but purpose. Every curve, every turn, is a conversation between matter and light. This pursuit of light shapes the very architecture of our world. The forests we walk through are sculpted by it. Trees stretch tall to capture the sun, while mosses and ferns learn to live in the shadows below. Flowers bloom at precise angles to catch the attention of bees in daylight. Even deep in the ocean, plants called algae reach upward through miles of water to grasp the faintest glimmer from above. It's the same dream, repeated across every ecosystem, the dream of light. And yet light is not just food for plants. It is their compass, their storyteller. The changing angle of sunlight tells them when to flower, when to shed leaves, when to sleep. When days grow short, trees begin their slow retreat into dormancy. Leaves turn gold and fall, not a sign of death, but of rest. The tree pulls its energy inward, storing it in the roots, waiting for the next season of light. There is something deeply comforting about that rhythm. It reminds us that rest is not failure. It is part of growth. Like the trees, we cannot always reach outward. There are seasons meant for gathering strength, for turning inward, for trusting that light will return. The forest doesn't doubt the Sunday. It simply waits. In many cultures, trees are symbols of patience and faith. The Celts believed that trees were guardians of time, their rings keeping the memory of every season. In Buddhist monasteries, monks meditate under trees to learn stillness. And in countless myths, from the Norse Yggdrasil to the African baobab, the world itself grows from a sacred tree connecting heaven, earth, and the underworld, a bridge of light and roots. Modern science too finds wonder in this ancient connection. Trees don't just grow toward light, they share it. Through the underground fungal networks, they distribute nutrients to seedlings trapped in shade, helping them survive until they can find their own sunlight. The strong bend toward brightness, and in doing so, cast light for the weak. Forests thrive, not through competition, but through quiet generosity. When we bring a plant into our home and place it by a window, it continues this eternal dance. You might notice it turning over days, adjusting its leaves to follow the Sunday. It doesn't need to think about it. It simply knows, and that knowing that calms certainty, that light is worth seeking, is something we can learn from. There's a kind of mindfulness in this movement. The plant doesn't rush or panic when clouds cover the sky. It waits. It trusts that the light will return as it always has. In that patience lies peace. Sometimes when you feel lost in shadow, remember the forest. Remember the way trees twist and stretch, not because they are certain, but because they believe in light they cannot yet see. The light is always there somewhere above the canopy, waiting for you to find it. So, breathe deeply. Feel the warmth of your own small sun inside the steady pulse of life that keeps reaching no matter what. You are not so different from the trees. You are made of the same carbon they exhale, carried by the same breath that stirs their leaves. And just like them, you are dreaming of light. If you were to press your ear against the trunk of a living tree, you might not hear much at first. Maybe the faint groan of wood shifting in the wind, the creak of bark stretching as it grows. But deep inside, beyond the range of your senses, the tree is pulsing. Its heart is not made of muscle, but of water rising and falling in a rhythm as old as rain. Scientists once thought trees were silent, but they have a heartbeat. Not a quick thump like ours, but a slow, deep pulse that moves through wood and root, carrying life upward from the soil to the sky. This pulse begins with sunlight. When light strikes, a leaf, tiny pores open on its surface, allowing water to evaporate into the air. That loss creates a subtle suction, pulling more water upward from the roots. The column of liquid climbs through microscopic tubes in the trunk, sometimes reaching over 100 meters high in the tallest redwoods. It's an invisible river, flowing day and night. And as it flows, it draws nutrients, minerals, and whispers from the earth itself, messages carried through sap. At night, when the air cools and the leaves close their pores, the flow slows and the tree rests. Its heartbeats pause, then begin again with dawn. Sensitive instruments can measure these pulses, a rise in pressure, a faint expansion of the trunk, a sigh as the water moves. The forest, it turns out, is not static. It breathes and beats its rhythms aligned with the turning of the planet. In Finnish folklore, it is said that if you lie beneath a tree in complete silence, you can hear it drinking. People who've tried it describe the faintest sound, like the movement of honey through a straw or a faraway tide. To scientists, it's called xylem cavitation. The tiny pops made as air bubbles form in the sap during its upward climb. To poets, it's the music of life itself. But the heartbeat of the forest is more than biology, it's harmony. When rain falls, water seeps through soil, moving into roots, into trunks, into leaves, and finally back into the sky. The trees lift it, release it, and call it back again. This endless loop is what keeps the planet's lungs moist, the rivers flowing, and the clouds alive. Without trees, the heartbeat would fade, and the sky itself would change. It's easy to forget this when standing in a city of glass and noise. Yet somewhere nearby a forest is pulsing, keeping the atmosphere balanced, regulating carbon and rain like a planetary metronome. The Amazon, often called the heart of the world, actually behaves like one. It pumps moisture into the air, creating clouds that drift across continents. Remove too much of it, and the rhythm falters. Storms change course. Drought spreads. The earth feels its own arrhythmia. If you've ever walked in a forest after rain, you know the sensation, that hush, that almost sacred quiet, that feels like the air itself is thicker. That's the forest's heartbeat, slowing after effort, its breath evening out. The smell of soil, the coolness in your lungs. It's not just pleasant, it's chemical. Trees release compounds called phytoncides, which calm your nervous system, lower cortisol, and steady your own heart. You are literally syncing with the forest's rhythm. In a way, we've always known this. Indigenous cultures across the world describe trees as living relatives, beings with pulse and memory. The Maori of New Zealand call their great trees kauri, the guardians of breath. The Yoruba of West Africa say that every forest has its own drumbeat, and that the wind through the leaves carries messages to the spirits. Even in modern laboratories, researchers have recorded low-frequency vibrations emitted by tree trunks, inaudible to us but constant, like a hum beneath the world. It's strange to realize that the pulse of a tree is not just vertical from roots to crown, but communal. Trees are connected underground through their roots and the mycorrhizal web, sharing water back and forth. When one dries, others lend their reserves. When one is wounded, others alter their rhythm to help balance the flow. The forest doesn't just have a heartbeat, it has a shared heartbeat. Thousands of tiny pulses synchronized into one vast rhythm. Maybe that's why so many people find peace beneath trees. Our own hearts slow down, our breathing deepens. The mind, so used to rushing, falls into step with that slower, steadier tempo. In that quiet space, stress dissolves, and something ancient stirs the recognition that your body is tuned to the same rhythm as the forest. You are made of water too. You pulse with the same pressure, the same cycles of light and rest. Close your eyes now. Imagine lying on the forest floor. Around you, roots stretch and whisper. Above, light filters through 1,000 shades of green. Every tree around you is beating softly, not in noise, but in motion, in sap, in air. The forest is alive, and you are part of its body. When you inhale, you borrow its breath. When your heart beats, you echo its rhythm. The difference between you and the trees is only tempo. And perhaps that's the lesson the forest offers, that peace isn't the absence of movement, but the discovery of the right rhythm, the one that matches the pulse of the world itself. So the next time life feels too fast, remember the trees. Slow your breath. Listen for the heartbeat beneath the noise. It's there, steady and patient, waiting for you to fall back into time with it. Beneath your feet lies another world, silent, dark, and alive with thought. If the forest canopy is the mind of the world, the roots are its memory. They stretch for miles, threading through the soil, touching other roots, fungi and stones. Each one carries stories of droughts, survived storms, endured, neighbors lost and regained. You cannot hear them, but the roots remember. For a long time, people believed that memory required a brain. But plants have shown us otherwise. They may not have neurons yet. They store experiences in other ways, through chemical traces, electrical pulses, and cellular patterns that change according to what they've endured. When a seedling is exposed to heat or wind, It remembers and adapts, growing differently the next time. When a tree faces drought, its roots adjust their chemistry, sealing moisture, storing signals for future growth. And when conditions return to normal, the next generation carries that knowledge, the imprint of survival written into its genes. This kind of memory isn't emotional, it's evolutionary, but it's also poetic. The ground beneath you is a living library. Roots communicate through electrical impulses so faint that scientists had to use sensitive electrodes to detect them, slow flashes of voltage like thoughts moving through a sleeping mind. The rhythm of these signals changes depending on what the plant experiences: dryness, hunger, danger, light. It's a pulse of awareness that runs far below the soil, connecting everything that grows. In the 1,980 seconds, researchers discovered something astonishing. When one tree was attacked by insects, nearby trees began producing defensive chemicals too, even before being touched. How did they know? The answer wasn't wind or sound, but roots. The underground web had transmitted the warning, carrying the message faster than chance could explain. The forest remembered pain and used that memory to protect itself. We see echoes of this intelligence everywhere. The touch-me-not plant learns not to close its leaves after repeated harmless touches, remembering that not every disturbance means harm. Pea plants can remember which direction light came from days earlier and will bend toward it again, even in the dark. Seeds can wait decades, sometimes centuries, for the right signal to wake, a precise combination of moisture, warmth, and chemical cues that says, now. It's as if the earth whispers to them when it's safe to begin again. This slow, patient intelligence challenges everything we think we know about consciousness. Maybe thought doesn't always need speed or sound. Maybe it can move through sap instead of neurons, through soil instead of synapses. The forest's memory is vast and communal. One tree alone can live for centuries. A forest remembers for millennia. After fires, after floods, new shoots rise from old roots. Some fungal networks beneath the ground are tens of thousands of years old, still holding the history of every season they've seen. In Japan, there's a word, komorebi, that means sunlight filtering through the leaves of trees. It's a beautiful reminder that memory is not only what's kept, but what's passed through. The light we see today has touched leaves, rivers, clouds, and soil, gathering traces of everything it encounters. In the same way, when you walk through a forest, you step through memories of ancient trees that once stood where you stand, of roots that still echo their shape underground. Indigenous traditions often speak of the mother tree, the great elder at the center of the forest. She remembers more than any of her offspring, her roots reaching deep, connecting generations. Through her nutrients and information flow. When she falls, the soil around her grows rich with her memory. New life rises from her decay, carrying fragments of her wisdom forward. Even in death, she teaches the forest how to live. Perhaps that's the greatest truth about plant memory. It's never held by one alone. It's shared, diffused, retold through seasons and rain. The forest doesn't cling to the past, it transforms it. Every fallen leaf becomes soil. Every root that rots becomes food for another. Forgetting in the forest is just another form of remembering, one that feeds the future. Modern neuroscience calls this distributed intelligence. The forest calls it life. When you stand among trees, you are standing in the middle of a mind that spans miles and centuries. Its memories flow beneath you, shaping the air, the ground, the rhythm of rain. Close your eyes and imagine it now. The roots reach outward, weaving through time. They hold the memory of rain on stone of fire, turning night red of wind, carving rivers from mountains. They hold the memory of us too, our footprints, our breath, our brief flickering stories. And as the roots remember, they forgive. So the next time you feel lost, place your hand on the ground. Feel the coolness of the earth beneath your palm. Somewhere beneath that surface, 1,000 roots are whispering, "We remember." Not in words, but in life itself. The memory of how to begin again, no matter how many times the world must start over. And in that remembering lies peace, the assurance that nothing is ever truly forgotten, only transformed into something new. The roots know this, the earth knows this, and now, so do you. If you were to strip away every machine, every city, every engine that hums across the earth, one silent force would still keep the world alive: the plants. They are the true engineers of the atmosphere, the quiet architects of air. Long before humans learned to speak, plants had already written the planet's chemistry. Long before lungs, they created breath. Billions of years ago, the early Earth was suffocating. The air was thick with methane and carbon dioxide, the sky a hazy orange. Then something extraordinary happened. Tiny cyanobacteria, ancestors of today's plants, learned to capture sunlight and split water into hydrogen and oxygen. In doing so, they changed the course of the planet forever. The oxygen they released rusted the oceans, painted the rocks red, and filled the sky with the very air we breathe. Scientists call it the Great Oxidation Event. Poets might call it the first sigh of the world. Since then, plants have been tirelessly refining the air. Every blade of grass, every fern, every tree is a living factory balancing gases with precision, more delicate than any human design. During the day, they inhale carbon dioxide and release oxygen. At night, they breathe in reverse, exhaling a whisper of carbon back into the sky. Together, they maintain a balance so stable that life can exist, a chemical heartbeat that has never stopped since its first pulse. Consider this: a single tree can release enough oxygen each year for 2 people to breathe. A square kilometer of rainforest exhales millions of liters of air each hour. The plankton in the ocean, those microscopic drifting plants, produce more oxygen than all the world's forests combined. You may never see them, but every breath you take is a gift from their invisible labor. We often imagine the atmosphere as something separate, an endless blue shell above us, but it's not separate. It's a living collaboration. The air is a fluid tapestry woven from leaf and lung, sea and sky. The oxygen you breathe today might have been exhaled by an oak in Europe last week, or a patch of seaweed off the coast of Chile this morning. Air is the planet's shared memory. And plants are the scribes who keep it written. Even now, they continue to repair what we damage. As humans pour carbon back into the sky, through fire and fuel plants quietly work to take it back, locking it away in trunks, roots, and soil. Forests are vast lungs that not only exhale life, but inhale our excess, cleansing the world, molecule by molecule. But they cannot do it endlessly. When forests burn or vanish, that delicate balance falters. The air thickens, the rhythm breaks, and yet nature always tries again. After volcanic eruptions, when the air turns poisonous, the first green shoots rise through the ash. After wildfires, charred forests sprout from blackened ground, restoring the breath of the earth. This resilience, this endless rebuilding of balance, is what makes plants not just survivors but creators. In ancient traditions, people understood this connection instinctively. The Egyptians worshipped the lotus as the flower of rebirth, blooming from the mud to bring light into the air. In Hindu mythology, the world rests on a lotus, rising from Vishnu's navel, a symbol of creation and breath. Even the word spirit comes from the Latin spiritus, meaning breath. Across cultures, breath and life are one and the same. Perhaps that's why being among trees feels like inhaling peace itself. When you walk through a forest, the air changes, not just in smell, but in structure. Trees release phytoncides and aerosols that clean the atmosphere and soothe the human body. Your lungs expand a little deeper, your pulse slows. You are breathing the work of green architects who have been sculpting the air for eons. But plants don't just create air, they color it. The faint shimmer of humidity rising from leaves shapes clouds and rainfall. Forests breathe out moisture that becomes rain hundreds of miles away. In this way, the Amazon truly does make its own weather. Without trees, the air dries, rivers fade. The sky itself is built from their exhalation. Modern science measures this in data, but there's poetry hidden in the numbers. The oxygen in your bloodstream was once sunlight captured by chlorophyll and released into the wind. Each molecule carries the memory of photosynthesis, a small miracle repeated trillions of times a second across the planet. The world doesn't need miracles, really. It already breathes them. Imagine this for a moment. You are standing on a hill at dusk. The air is cool. Around you, grasses whisper in the wind. You breathe in, and somewhere, a forest answers. You exhale, and the trees breathe that carbon in. It's an exchange so constant, you never notice it yet. Without it, you'd have just minutes to live. Life in its simplest form is this, an endless conversation between leaf and lung. And if you listen long enough, you can almost hear it. The soft sound of photosynthesis, the turning of sunlight into air, the rhythm of balance that holds the world together. It's not just science, it's grace. So the next time you take a deep breath, remember that you're not only filling your lungs, you're touching every forest, every meadow, every ocean bloom that has ever lived. You are part of the planet's respiration. One breath among billions, rising and falling with the green heartbeat of the world. Imagine a meadow in summer, awash in gold and violet. The air hums gently, not just with wind, but with wings. Bees drift from bloom to bloom, their bodies dusted with pollen like tiny golden travelers. To the casual eye, this is a simple exchange. Insects searching for nectar flowers, offering sweetness. But beneath the beauty lies something even more extraordinary. The flowers are listening. It sounds like myth, but it's science. Researchers have found that many flowers can detect the vibrations of a bee's wings. When they hear that familiar frequency, around 250 Hz, their chemistry changes within minutes. Petals quiver. Nectar becomes sweeter. The plant rewards the visitor that has arrived, responding to sound in a way that blurs the line between sensing and hearing. It's as if for a moment, the flower and the bee share a conversation in the language of vibration. For centuries, people assumed plants were deaf, mute, and oblivious to sound. Yet now we know that they not only perceive vibrations, but interpret them. Different tones evoke different responses. The buzz of a bee signals opportunity. The rumble of a predator's chewing triggers defense. Even the sound of running water can draw roots toward its source. Plants live in a world of tremors, where every sound is a ripple of energy through the air or soil. If you could slow down time enough to watch, a meadow would look like a living concert. Each wing beat, each step, each whisper of wind creates a pattern. The stems bend slightly, leaves flicker, petals pulse to unseen rhythms. The entire field sways in response to the frequencies around it. Some botanists call this acoustic ecology. But to anyone standing there with eyes closed, it feels more like listening to the world breathe. The relationship between flowers and bees is one of the oldest and most intimate partnerships on Earth. Long before humans appeared, they were already perfecting their dance. Flowers evolved colors that bees can see: brilliant yellows and blues, invisible ultraviolet patterns that form landing guides. In return, bees evolved bodies made to collect pollen, tiny hairs that catch and carry the dust of life from one blossom to another. Every fruit, every seed, every field of grain begins with this delicate collaboration. But what's even more miraculous is how tuned it all is. The size of a bee's body determines its wing beat frequency. The shape of a flower's petals determines which frequencies it resonates with. It's as if nature composed a song, each species assigned its own note. When bee and bloom meet their notes, harmonize, and life continues. The universe hums softly through them. Some scientists now wonder whether flowers can also sense other sounds. The thunder of approaching storms, the footfalls of grazing animals, perhaps even the vibrations of our voices. It's not impossible. In laboratories, plants exposed to soothing tones grow faster and fuller than those surrounded by noise. Maybe music too is part of the same invisible dialogue, another way energy moves through living things. In a way, flowers teach us something profound about listening. They don't have ears or eardrums, yet they perceive through openness. They allow the world to move through them, to change them. In that vulnerability lies strength. When we listen, truly listen, we do the same. We let the universe reshape us one sound at a time. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine being there in the meadow, the hum of bees around you, the perfume of wild thyme and clover in the air. You can feel the vibrations in your chest, in the soil beneath your feet. You breathe, and even your heartbeat becomes part of the rhythm. The world for that instant is one vast resonance. Every flower, every insect, every molecule of air vibrating together in harmony. There's an ancient wisdom in that harmony. Indigenous stories from across the world speak of bees as messengers between realms, carriers of sunlight, keepers of sweetness. In Greek myth, the bee was sacred to Artemis, symbolizing connection between wildness and order. In ancient Egypt, it was born from the tears of the sun god, Ra. Even today, the disappearance of bees sends a ripple of unease through our collective heart, as if a vital note in the planet's song has gone missing. Because without bees, silence would fall, the hum would fade, fields would go barren, fruitless. Nearly 1/3 of the food we eat depends on their labor. But the relationship goes deeper than survival. The bees remind us that life itself is built on collaboration, on call and response, vibration and answer giving and receiving. Every sound, every flutter, every breath is part of that endless exchange. So when you next see a bee slow down, watch it hover for a moment, deciding where to land. The flower listens, and so can you. There's music in that pause, an ancient duet between two forms of life that have trusted each other for millions of years. And if you listen long enough, you might hear it too. The soft conversation that keeps the world blooming. The hum that turns sunlight into sweetness. The sound of life itself singing quietly just beneath the noise of everything else. There's a reason people walk into a forest and immediately feel their shoulders loosen, their thoughts slow, and their breath deepen. Something happens when the world turns green around you. Something older than language, older than culture. The mind, which so often feels like a restless machine, suddenly remembers what silence sounds like. The air thickens with the scent of pine and soil sunlight, filters through branches like liquid gold, and you begin to feel for the first time in a while that you belong somewhere again. Science now has a name for this sensation: forest bathing, or Shinrin-yoku, a practice born in Japan in the 1980 seconds, but rooted in ancient wisdom. It doesn't involve exercise or meditation or goals. It simply means to be among trees, to let the forest enter through your senses. You breathe in the forest's air, listen to its rhythm, touch its bark, and let it remind you that you too are part of the natural world. What began as a cultural movement has since become one of the most studied forms of natural therapy. Researchers found that spending just 2 hours in a forest can lower stress hormones by up to 40%. Blood pressure drops, heart rate steadies. Immune cells, called natural killers, those that fight viruses and cancer, increase in number and activity, and this effect can last for days. But why? It isn't just the quiet. Trees emit substances called phytoncides, natural oils that protect them from bacteria and insects. When we inhale these molecules, they act like invisible medicine, lowering inflammation, and anxiety in our bodies. It's as if trees are exhaling calm, and we are built to breathe it. There's another reason forests calm us: their fractal patterns. Look closely at a fern, a branch of oak leaves, or the shape of a river seen from above. Each repeats a similar geometry, the same patterns at different scales. Our brains, shaped by evolution to recognize these natural forms, respond to them instinctively. We find them soothing because they mirror our inner architecture. Even our neural networks branch like trees. When you stand in a forest, you are surrounded by the same design that lives within your body. Artists and monks have always known this. Medieval cathedrals mimicked the geometry of trees, their columns rising like trunks, their arches branching toward heaven. In ancient China, scholars retreated to bamboo groves to write poetry, believing that the calm of the plants would flow into their ink. And even now, psychologists use green therapy time, spent in gardens, parks, or forests, to treat depression, trauma, and burnout. It works not because nature distracts us, but because it restores what our minds were built for: rhythm, quiet, and connection. Think about how cities move fast, sharp, linear. Everything in them hums with deadlines. Forests move differently. Time flows in circles there: growth, decay, rebirth. Nothing hurries, yet nothing stops. The forest's calm isn't passive, it's active stillness. Every drop of dew, every beam of light filtering through the canopy is part of an endless choreography of balance. When you walk slowly among the trees, you join that rhythm. The forest heals you not by changing who you are, but by reminding you how to be. And the effect is not only mental. Trees quite literally change the air around you. Their leaves absorb pollutants, cool the atmosphere, and release oxygen enriched by moisture. The air in a dense forest can contain thousands of microscopic ions that enhance serotonin, the same neurotransmitter that lifts your mood. When you breathe in that air, it's like inhaling serenity. In Japan, doctors can prescribe forest time as medicine. In South Korea, there are government-funded healing forests where people walk through aromatic pines and oaks as part of therapy. Hospitals in Scandinavia build recovery gardens where patients rest among flowers and birch trees, recovering faster than those who stare at sterile walls. Even in prisons, programs that bring inmates to work in gardens reduce violence and anxiety. The forest doesn't judge. It simply offers itself oxygen, silence, and patience to anyone willing to receive it. Sometimes when life feels too heavy, it helps to imagine walking through such a place. Picture yourself stepping onto a soft path, leaves crunching underfoot. The air is cool and sweet. Sunlight flickers through branches above, making the ground shimmer. Somewhere nearby, water moves slow, deliberate, eternal. You breathe, and for the first time today, your thoughts stop shouting. You realize the forest doesn't need you to do anything. You are enough just standing there. Maybe that's the lesson of forest bathing, that peace isn't earned. It's received. It's already there, waiting in the spaces between leaves, in the rhythm of your lungs, in the patient work of photosynthesis that has kept this planet alive for billions of years. When you leave the forest, it doesn't leave you. The scent of pine clings to your clothes. The sound of the wind follows you in memory. And when you lie down that night, eyes closed, you might still feel the faint, rhythmic pulse of the forest, your heart beating in time with the earth. Before we ever learned to speak, before we carved words into stone or paper, we understood the language of scent. It guided us through forests, told us which berries were safe to eat, which flowers meant spring had arrived, which rains would fall soon. To smell the world was to know it. And for plants, scent is one of their most powerful ways of communicating, not just with each other, but with us. Every fragrance that drifts from a garden, every whiff of pine or lavender or rain on dry soil carries information. To a bee, the scent of a flower means food. To another plant, a whiff of its neighbor's distress can signal danger, triggering chemical defenses. To us, those same molecules evoke memory, emotion, and calm. Our brains are wired directly to respond. Unlike sight or sound, smell doesn't travel through the logical part of the mind first. It goes straight to the limbic system, the seat of emotion and memory. That's why a single breath of jasmine can suddenly transport you to a summer years ago. Or why the smell of rain can make you feel safe. The air around plants is not empty. It's a sea of invisible messengers drifting molecules that tell stories. When a tomato plant is bitten by an insect, it releases a faint green scent that warns its neighbors to prepare their own defenses. When flowers bloom, they exhale a signature perfume designed to attract exactly the right pollinator. Some open only at night, their fragrance tailored for moths who navigate by scent in the dark. Others change their perfume through the day, adjusting their chemistry with the temperature and light. The world, if you could smell it fully, would be an orchestra. But our connection to plant scent goes deeper than survival. It's emotional, even spiritual. The essential oils that plants produce for their own protection and attraction happen to calm the human nervous system. Lavender lowers heart rate and anxiety. Rose increases serotonin and fosters feelings of compassion. The sharp, clean scent of pine reduces fatigue and boosts alertness. Even the smell of freshly cut grass, which is actually a distress signal released by the blades, triggers relaxation in the human brain. We are, without realizing it, comforted by the whispers of greenery. In ancient temples, priests burned frankincense and myrrh, not just for ceremony, but for clarity. In Ayurveda, aromatic herbs like sandalwood and tulsi were used to balance energy. Indigenous healers burned sage or cedar to cleanse the spirit and the air. Across cultures and centuries, humans have turned to plant scents to bridge the gap between the body and the unseen. The air we breathe becomes a kind of prayer. Even modern science, with all its precision, cannot fully explain why scent holds such power. Brain scans show that pleasant aromas can quiet the amygdala, the part of the brain that registers fear, while activating the prefrontal cortex, where calm decisions are made. A single deep breath of a soothing aroma can literally change your brain's chemistry in seconds. The scent of forests carried by molecules called phytoncides increases immune function and reduces cortisol. Aromas are medicine. We don't have to swallow, we only have to breathe. But scent doesn't just heal the mind, it reshapes time. Have you ever noticed how certain smells make the world slow down? The smell of earth after rain, that faint mineral sweetness called petrichor, makes everything pause. For a moment, your senses open wider. You're no longer in the rush of thought, but in the present breathing with the world. That's the secret gift of scent. It anchors you to now. There's a gentle intimacy in breathing what plants release. You inhale what they exhale, their chemistry mingling with your own. In that exchange, your body learns their rhythm. The molecules they crafted to survive heat, drought, or insects become your calm, your focus, your peace. It's an invisible act of generosity that happens with every breath. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine walking through a field at dusk. The air is cool and filled with lavender. Each step releases more of its fragrance, soft, herbal, sweet. You inhale, and something inside you unwinds. Farther down the path, you catch the faint spice of wild mint and the resin of pine carried from the hills. The scents weave together like threads, wrapping you in something you can't see but can feel. You are being held by the memory of plants. Perfume makers call this the soul of the plant, the volatile essence that carries its identity. But perhaps the truth is simpler. What we smell is presence, the living proof of a world still growing, still breathing, still offering itself. When we fill a room with flowers, burn a sprig of rosemary, or let the scent of rain drift through an open window, we invite the calm of the natural world back into our hearts. Scent is not just decoration. It's language, medicine, and memory, all in one breath. And it reminds us gently that even in the unseen in air that seems empty, life is still speaking. The next time you catch the faint sweetness of a flower or the green whisper of leaves after rain pours, that is the earth greeting you. That is peace traveling through air, searching for you to breathe it in. If you walk into a greenhouse at night when the fans are silent and the air is heavy with humidity, you'll notice something strange. The plants still seem awake. Their leaves shift slightly as if adjusting themselves to dreams, and an invisible energy hums through the room. Even without sunlight, something continues to move. Growth never truly stops, it only changes form. The secret of that growth is light. Every green thing you see, every field, every forest, every blade of grass, all are shaped by sunlight, transformed into matter. It is the quietest alchemy in the universe, light becoming life. Each photon that travels across the emptiness of space, leaving the surface of the sun 8 minutes ago, will be caught by a leaf, absorbed into chlorophyll, and turned into sugar, the first spark of energy in a long chain that leads to everything we know. That's what photosynthesis is, the gentle fusion of sunlight, water, and air into food. No flame, no noise, no explosion. Just radiance captured in green cells converted into sustenance. It's the miracle that makes all miracles possible. Without it, there would be no oxygen, no forests, no you. Every heartbeat, every breath, every thought is powered by sunlight stored in molecules crafted by plants. You are, in a literal sense, a being made of light that has been eaten and remembered. Scientists can describe the process in equations, but it never loses its mystery. In each chloroplast, thousands of pigments work together, channeling photons like tiny conductors in a cosmic symphony. Water molecules are split, electrons race, energy flows, and sugar-pure chemical light takes form. What's remarkable is the efficiency. Plants use just enough, never more. They harvest light without waste, without greed. They take what they need and give the rest away. Imagine if humanity learned from that. Imagine if we could live as plants do, drawing energy, gently giving more than we take, creating beauty simply by existing. The secret light of growth isn't only about energy. It's also about awareness. Plants can sense far more about light than we ever realized. They can distinguish between morning and afternoon sunlight, between the warm gold of dawn and the cool blue of shade. They know when the days are growing shorter and prepare for sleep when spring returns and it's time to bloom. Some flowers, like sunflowers and marigolds, even move throughout the day following the sun's arc, with devotion so steady that ancient civilizations believed they worshipped the light itself. But there's something even deeper in that devotion. Light isn't just sustenance, it's information. Through it, plants measure time, seasons, and even their neighbor's presence. In the crowded forest, a plant growing under shade knows it's being overshadowed, not by touch or sound, but by the faint change in the color of light filtering through leaves above. It stretches upward inch by inch, reaching for the brighter hue of open sky. In laboratories, scientists have discovered that plants send faint pulses of light from their own cells. Biophotons, tiny flashes, invisible to the human eye. They seem to communicate with each other through these microbursts of luminescence, signaling distress, health, or readiness to flower. It's as if beneath the canopy, an unseen constellation is always flickering. The forest glows softly to itself, speaking in photons instead of words. When you think about it, plants are timekeepers of light. They have captured not only the warmth of our sun, but the memory of every sunrise that ever was. The carbon in their stems, the sugar in their fruits, the oxygen they release, all of it is sunlight transformed. Every apple you eat, every grain of rice, every breath of air is starlight made tangible. There's something comforting in that. Even in the darkest night, the light persists, stored in leaf and wood, waiting to be released again. When a log burns in a fire, what you see isn't destruction, but release the sunlight that entered that tree years ago finally returning to the sky. The flame is a memory of daylight, freed from its wooden sleep. The same happens in us. The energy that keeps your heart beating comes from food that once captured sunlight. In every moment, you are radiating the same energy that once fell upon a leaf. Life is not separate from the stars. It's the continuation of their glow through living things. Perhaps that's why light feels sacred to us. We light candles in prayer lanterns, in morning fires in celebration. We chase dawn and fear dusk. Something in us remembers where we came. From the warmth, the brightness, the pulse of creation that still burns inside every green cell. So the next time you stand in sunlight, pause. Let it rest on your skin. Feel its quiet warmth seep into you. You are part of the same cycle, the same river of photons flowing through every leaf and lung, every cell and seed. The plants are not just beneath you, they are within you, their light folded into your very breath. And somewhere deep in the heart of every forest, the light continues to move, patient, generous, eternal. Growth hums on, even in darkness. The earth dreams in green, and its dreams are made of light. If you sit long enough beside a garden, really sit without hurry, without phone, or thought, you begin to notice that the silence isn't truly silent. The air hums softly. The leaves tremble in patterns that seem to follow some hidden rhythm. What we call quiet is only the limit of our hearing. Beneath that threshold, plants are making music, not in notes or melody, but in vibration and pulse. The green world sings constantly, just too softly for our ears. For decades, scientists dismissed the idea that plants could produce sound. But then came the microphones devices, sensitive enough to pick up the faintest tremors of life. What they found was astonishing. Every stem, every root, every leaf releases tiny pops and clicks as water moves through its tissues. Each burst of sap, each bubble of air rising in a vein makes a faint acoustic pulse. Together they form an endless score, a soft percussion of life beneath the surface. This hidden symphony shifts with the weather, the light, the hour. When the sun rises, the tempo quickens as photosynthesis begins. When night falls, it slows. During drought, the sound becomes frantic, sharp pops of air as water columns break inside the xylem. When rain returns, the rhythm evens out again. In their way, the plants are playing the story of their day. We can't hear these vibrations directly, but when recorded and amplified, they form melodies eerie, delicate, hauntingly alive. Some artists have begun turning these sounds into music, connecting sensors to leaves and stems to translate electrical signals into notes. What emerges is both scientific and spiritual, a living duet between human and plant. Listeners describe the music as calming, otherworldly, strangely emotional. It's as if the forest, long silent to our ears, finally found a way to speak. And perhaps that's not so surprising. Plants live in vibration. They feel sound as pressure through air, water, and soil. Roots, for instance, can sense low-frequency tones and grow toward them. Experiments have shown that when exposed to gentle vibrations like the murmur of a stream or the buzz of a pollinator, plants grow stronger, healthier, more resilient. But when bombarded by harsh noise, their growth falters. They are listening all the time, learning which sounds mean safety and which mean harm. The more scientists study them, the more plants seem like musicians of their own environment. Some species emit pulses that attract beneficial microbes. Others release low-frequency hums that synchronize with nearby plants, perhaps coordinating growth. There's even evidence that trees in dense forests vibrate together in response to wind, like the strings of an enormous harp. Each gust strums them into resonance, sending energy and information rippling across the canopy. If you could hear this in real time, it would be overwhelming. A planet-wide concert of roots, leaves, and trunks, all responding to the breath of the wind and the roll of the sea. The earth itself would sound like a great slow chord sustained over eons. And maybe it does. Maybe what we call the background noise of the world, the wind, the waves, the hum of insects, is part of that same song, the voice of a living system tuned to balance. Indigenous traditions have long spoken of this. In many cultures, plants are said to carry songs, melodies that heal or guide those who listen. In the Amazon, shamans learn Icaro's songs, taught to them by the spirits of plants. These are not metaphors, but relationships. The healer listens, and the plant teaches through vibration, through dreams, through resonance. Science may explain this in different terms, but the core idea remains that communication between life forms can happen in ways beyond words. When you listen deeply to the world, you start to notice rhythms everywhere. The rise and fall of your breath, the beating of your heart, the drip of rain on leaves, even silence has texture. Perhaps what the plants remind us is that sound isn't something we make, it's something we join. Life is already singing, we only have to learn how to hear it. Imagine walking through a forest at dawn. The light is pale, the ground damp with dew. The trees creak softly as they stretch toward the first warmth of the Sunday. You can't hear it, but every stem around you is vibrating tiny pulses of water and sugar rushing through their veins. It's like standing inside a slow-moving orchestra. The more you slow down, the more you feel it. The hum beneath your feet, the tremor in the air. Music therapy researchers sometimes say that nature entrains the human brain, aligning our internal rhythms with its patterns. That's why birdsong rain or the rustle of leaves can soothe anxiety. On a deeper level, it's because we are literally tuning ourselves to the same frequencies that move through all living things. Our heartbeats fall into sync with the forest's pulse. Plants remind us that sound doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. The softest vibration can hold meaning. The stillest silence can contain a song. Somewhere under every patch of soil, a quiet melody is playing the slow music of sap and sunlight of growth and rest of life moving through matter. So tonight before you sleep, imagine that sound. Picture the world humming softly to itself, the forest, the fields, the gardens, even the plants in your room. Feel your breathing match its rhythm. In that moment, you are part of the symphony too, one note in the great green song of existence. In every corner of the planet, there are plants that refuse to die beings, so old, so patient, that they've watched the rise and fall of civilizations without moving an inch. They stand in deserts where nothing else lives, on mountaintops, lashed by ice in the depths of swamps and caves where no sunlight ever reaches. They do not chase immortality the way humans do. They simply endure, and in their stillness, they teach us what it means to last. Take the bristlecone pine growing on rocky slopes in the American West. The oldest among them is nearly 5,000 years old. It sprouted before the pyramids were built, before the first word of written language. Its trunk is twisted and scarred, half dead, half living, but still it holds green needles at its crown. When scientists studied it, they found that its wood resists decay almost completely. The tree repairs itself from the inside out, sealing wounds so slowly that one heartbeat of healing might take a century. Or consider the creosote bush of the Mojave Desert. What looks like a cluster of many plants is actually one. A single genetic individual that has been cloning itself for more than 11,000 years. As old stems die, new shoots emerge in a ring around the center, expanding outward like ripples from a stone. The original root system continues beneath the sand, ancient and unbroken. If plants could remember, this one would recall the first humans crossing its land. Even underwater, in meadows of seagrass near Spain, scientists discovered another, immortal. A patch of Posidonia oceanica spans more than 15 kilometers, all genetically identical, meaning it's the same organism possibly older than 20,000 years. It has survived ice ages, heat waves, and storms that erased continents, bending with the currents but never breaking. What allows these beings to persist? Patience, adaptation. A relationship with time so different from ours that it feels divine. While humans measure life in years, and achievements plants measure it in sunlight and renewal. When a storm tears off their branches, they grow again. When fire burns their surface, their roots wait beneath the ash dreaming of rain. To them, death is not an ending, but a rhythm, a pause between breaths. Some plants have even found ways to reverse the process of aging itself. The Turritopsis dornii, a tiny jellyfish, is often called immortal. But among plants, a similar marvel exists, the so-called resurrection plants. These small desert species, like the Selaginella lepidophylla, can dry out completely, curling into a ball that looks lifeless, brittle grey. Yet when touched by a few drops of water, they unfold again within hours, green and vibrant as if reborn. They can repeat this cycle for decades. To watch one revive is to see hope made visible. In laboratories, botanists have studied ancient seeds dug from permafrost or tombs. One seed from a long-extinct Arctic flower germinated after 32,000 years of dormancy. Another, a date palm seed from Masada in Israel, sprouted after 2 millennia of sleep. Life waits quietly, hidden in the shell, patient beyond imagination. Perhaps that's the secret. Plants don't fight time. They collaborate with it. They bend to its seasons, hide within it, grow through it. While we rage against decay, they understand that decay is what feeds renewal. Fallen leaves become soil. Fallen trees shelter new roots. Nothing is wasted, nothing truly gone. Immortality for plants isn't the refusal to die, it's the certainty of returning. Ancient cultures knew this long before science. The Egyptians worshipped the lotus because it bloomed each morning from the mud, untouched by the night. The Aztecs honored maize as the god who dies each harvest and is reborn with every planting. Even in Christianity, the olive branch became a symbol of eternal peace, a living sign that life survives after catastrophe. Across myths, plants are the messengers between worlds, bridging death and rebirth. Standing among the ruins of human history, these green elders remind us of perspective. The trees that shaded Plato's academy, the olive groves of Jerusalem, the cedars of Lebanon, some still live today. The same sap still rises in their veins. To them, we are the fleeting ones, the mayflies of time, burning fast and bright. And yet there is comfort in that difference. We do not need to live for millennia to be part of eternity. We already are through them. Every breath we take carries their gift of oxygen. Every meal is a piece of sunlight they stored for us. When we die, our bodies return to the soil, and they will take our atoms back, weaving them into leaves and bark. The line between life and death dissolves into one continuous cycle of renewal. So, if the thought of mortality ever troubles you, look to the forest. See the ancient trees, standing in quiet patience, their branches half living, half ghost. They are not afraid. They have seen everything end and begin again. Their message is simple. All endings are beginnings wearing different clothes. Close your eyes. Imagine a desert where the wind whispers over stones, and in the distance a single resurrection plant stirs. The air is dry, the sun relentless. Yet, with the smallest drop of rain, it opens a spiral of green in a sea of dust. That's what life is, the courage to open again, no matter how long the night has been. Night falls, and the garden seems to sleep. The flowers close their petals, the leaves hang motionless, and the world sinks into silence. But the stillness is deceptive. Beneath the quiet, life continues its secret work. Plants do not sleep. As we do, they dream differently. When the light fades, they turn inward, listening to rhythms older than the moon. In the darkness, the chemistry of life shifts. Sugars made during the day are sent from leaves to roots, feeding unseen growth. The pores on the leaves, which opened in daylight to exhale oxygen, now close gently to conserve water. Deep underground roots stretch and turn, guided by the pull of gravity and the faint vibrations of the earth. The forest is awake in its own way, humming softly beneath our awareness. Scientists once believed that plants simply stopped functioning at night, but now we know better. Their cells follow circadian rhythms, biological clocks as precise as ours. Even in constant darkness, plants maintain a sense of time. They anticipate dawn, begin preparing for light hours before it arrives, adjusting their metabolism to match the coming day. It's as though they remember sunlight the way we remember dreams. When darkness deepens, some plants enter states of near stillness, their movements slow, their energy focused inward. Yet in those hours, astonishing things happen. DNA repairs itself from the day's radiation. Roots communicate more actively, sending signals to nearby plants, redistributing nutrients through fungal networks. Some scientists even describe this as nighttime conversation, the forest exchanging quiet messages beneath the ground while the world sleeps. The flowers too have their nocturnal secrets. Night-blooming species like jasmine and moonflower open only after sunset, releasing fragrances that drift for miles to attract moths and bats. Their petals reflect faint moonlight, turning gardens into ghostly oceans of silver and white. If you stand among them, you might sense that the night itself has turned alive, breathing through their blossoms. And then there are the plants that seem to dream, moving as if under the spell of sleep. The leaves of beans and clovers droop at dusk and rise again at dawn, even when kept in total darkness. This movement, called nyctinasty, is thought to protect delicate cells from cold and dew, but it feels more mysterious than practical, a slow, rhythmic dance that mirrors the breathing of the earth. Watch a time-lapse of it, and you'll see the planet exhale and inhale in green. In laboratories, scientists studying plant electrophysiology have detected faint electrical pulses that fluctuate in patterns, signals that continue through the night, like neural waves in a sleeping brain. Though we cannot say plants dream, their nighttime activity suggests something close, an internal world alive with memory adjustment and anticipation. They replay the day's light, storing what they've learned, repairing what was damaged, preparing for what's next. There's poetry in this. The idea that even without consciousness as we know it, life seeks renewal through rest. Perhaps dreams are not only for minds, but for all living systems that must pause to heal. Maybe the difference between a sleeping person and a sleeping forest is only one of speed and awareness. The same pulse, the same need to restore balance beats in both. Night is when we return to the rhythm plants have known all along. In sleep we mirror them, our hearts slow, our energy turns inward, our minds drift into unseen worlds where memory and imagination blend. The boundary between our rest and theirs dissolves. As we dream of sunlight, they prepare to meet it. As they breathe out the last of their oxygen, we breathe it in. We are synchronized, the green and the human, in a shared ritual of renewal. If you've ever walked in a forest under moonlight, you may have felt this connection. The path glows faintly silvered by dew. The trees are still, yet their presence hums in the air. The night wind moves through branches, like the quiet tide of thought. You breathe, and the forest breathes with you. Somewhere the scent of night-blooming flowers lingers sweet, faint, timeless. In that moment you realize that sleep itself is not absence, but transformation. Everything alive is dreaming its way toward another dawn. Ancient cultures intuited this long before science. The Egyptians believed that the lotus flower closed each night to sink into the underworld. then rose reborn with the Sunday. In Hindu texts, the universe itself is said to sleep within Vishnu's cosmic dream, waiting for the next awakening. Even in modern physics, the particles of matter never truly rest. They vibrate in silence, like plants breathing in the dark. The world never stops, it only changes tempo. So tonight, when you close your eyes, imagine the forest beside you. The leaves above are folding gently, the roots beneath are whispering to one another, exchanging water and memory. The flowers tilt toward the stars, glowing faintly with bioluminescent dust. The entire earth is drifting through its own slow dream, one heartbeat of stillness between days. And as you drift with it, remember, you are not apart from that dream. You are part of it, a leaf among billions turning softly toward the promise of light. Sleep then, as the plants do, without fear, without hurry, trusting that morning will find you again. There's a moment, perhaps, you felt it when you're alone in a park or forest, and the light falls just right when a leaf trembles in the wind, and for no reason you feel seen. Not by another person, not by any god you can name, but by life itself. Something passes between you and the world, wordless, but certain. That too is connection, a bond older than thought between human and leaf. We've always felt it, even if we forgot how to describe it. Our ancestors lived in a world of roots and weather, and they learned that plants were not background but kin. They prayed to them, built homes from them, fed on them, healed through them. They knew what we are only now remembering, that human beings are not separate from nature. We are nature shaped by its breath, tempered by its rhythm, made of the same molecules that once shimmered inside a blade of grass. Science has started to confirm what ancient intuition always whispered, that this bond is physical, measurable, and deeply emotional. Studies show that when people touch or care for plants, their brainwaves slow. The nervous system moves from the anxious hum of alertness into the calm of rest. Cortisol drops. The immune system strengthens. Just looking at green, even through a window, triggers this shift. The body recognizes life and responds with gratitude. Why does this happen? Because biologically we grew up together. Plants shape the air we breathe, the food we eat, even the colors our eyes evolved to see. The human retina is most sensitive to green, not by accident, but because for millions of years, green meant life water, food safety. The sight of it still quiets the primal part of the brain that fears scarcity. The forest, in a sense, is our oldest home, and our minds relax when we return to it. Yet beyond biology lies something subtler: empathy. Humans have an instinct to project feeling onto the living world, and while we once dismissed this as imagination research, now suggests it may have a purpose. When you care for a plant, when you notice it droop or bloom, you are practicing attunement, the same sensitivity that underlies compassion for others. The act of nurturing a green life reawakens that faculty of tenderness that the modern world so often dulls. Maybe that's why houseplants feel like quiet companions. You water them, move them toward the light, prune their leaves. They grow because of your care, and in that exchange, something inside you grows too. Each new leaf feels like a small success, a wordless thank you. The relationship asks for patience, presence, attention. 3 things that peace itself requires. In Japan, there's a term for this: kansha no ki, the tree of gratitude. People write wishes or thanks on paper and tie them to branches. The gesture may seem symbolic, but it's rooted in a deeper truth that giving attention is a form of love. When you look closely at a leaf, you're not just seeing veins and chlorophyll. You're recognizing design complexity, miracle. And when you see miracle, often enough humility follows naturally. Many people talk to their plants, and while science once smiled at the idea, it now knows that sound and intention do make a difference. Plants respond to vibration, and perhaps to the energy behind it, the warmth of human presence, the frequency of care. Maybe they don't hear us the way we think, but they feel us, and perhaps that's enough. There's a profound comfort in this mutual awareness. When life feels fractured, when loneliness presses in, tending to a plant can restore a sense of belonging. The simple acts, watering, wiping a leaf, watching a bud form, remind you that you are still part of the cycle, still capable of kindness that ripples beyond yourself. You give life, and life gives back in oxygen, beauty, quiet companionship. Even our language remembers this intimacy. The word person shares roots with purse, meaning to breathe through. The Latin anima means both soul and air. Across cultures, the act of breathing has always been tied to the essence of being alive. Plants and humans share that breath. We inhale what they exhale what they inhale. A perfect trust that happens with every moment, every heartbeat, every sigh. Maybe that's what love truly is, not just emotion but exchange. A rhythm between giving and receiving so constant that it becomes invisible. The leaf doesn't keep score. It simply turns sunlight into oxygen and offers it freely. We can learn from that. Close your eyes and imagine placing your hand on a tree trunk. Feel the texture of the bark, the cool dampness beneath your palm. Inside that stillness, sap is moving, carrying sugars and minerals in slow rivers. You are touching a living system, older and wiser than yourself. The boundary between you and it begins to blur. For a moment you breathe together. This is the bond between human and leaf, not a metaphor but a truth of chemistry, physics and spirit. The connection that says, you are alive because I am alive, and I am alive because you breathe me. So, the next time you pass a tree, pause. Say thank you silently, sincerely. That small acknowledgement is more than courtesy. It's remembrance. The forest, after all, has never forgotten you. Every medicine we know, from the simplest tea to the most complex drug, began as a whisper from the soil. Long before laboratories and glass vials, humans turned to leaves, roots, and bark for healing. The first doctors were not men in white coats, but gatherers kneeling in the dust, listening to the language of plants. And the plants, patient and ancient, answered. When we trace the lineage of medicine, we find green fingerprints everywhere. Willow bark gave rise to aspirin. The foxglove's bell-shaped flowers taught us how to regulate the heartbeat. The opium poppy, the rosy periwinkle, the yew tree, all have yielded compounds that save lives daily in hospitals across the world. Even quinine, the drug that once conquered malaria, comes from the bitter bark of a South American tree. The cures for our deepest wounds were already here, waiting quietly beneath our feet. Modern science calls this biochemistry, but for most of history, it was seen as conversation. In the jungles of the Amazon, healers claimed the plants told them which leaves to mix, which roots to boil, which flowers to avoid. They described these teachings as songs, visions, or dreams, a form of guidance that science might call intuition, but that wisdom calls relationship. To know a plant was to understand its spirit as well as its chemistry. Every culture developed its own pharmacopoeia. The Chinese recorded thousands of herbal remedies in scrolls over 2,000 years ago. Indian Ayurveda described the properties of plants with astonishing accuracy: cooling, warming, drying, stimulating. The Greeks learned from them, and their knowledge later shaped the medicine of the West. Across continents, the same truth emerged, that healing grows from the earth itself. Even today, when we isolate molecules and synthesize them in sterile rooms, we are only echoing what plants have done for eons. They are master chemists, transforming sunlight, minerals, and water into complex compounds that defend, repair, and renew. Some of these molecules calm inflammation, others fight infection or soothe pain, and they do it not with force, but with balance. Plants never heal by domination. They heal by reminding systems how to harmonize again. Think of aloe vera, the humble succulent, that sits in countless windowsills. Cut its leaf, and the gel inside cools, burns instantly. Its molecules mimic those in human skin, teaching the body to close its wounds. Or peppermint, a burst of clarity for the lungs and mind alike, its scent-clearing pathways, both physical and emotional. Even the scent of rosemary improves memory, while chamomile lulls anxious hearts into rest. These are not coincidences, but collaborations, old friendships written in chemistry. And it isn't only our bodies that plants mend. The act of preparing medicine itself, crushing herbs, boiling roots, steeping leaves, has always been ritual as much as remedy. It slows the mind, reconnects the healer and the patient to the rhythm of life. Modern pharmacology often forgets this part, focusing on the molecule and not the moment. But those who work with plants know that intention matters. The way you touch the leaf, the patience you bring to the brew, the gratitude you hold while giving it all become part of the medicine. There's a quiet humility in that. We are not masters of healing, only participants in a process that began long before us. Even now, 70% of modern drugs are derived from or inspired by natural compounds. The rainforest, though it covers less than 10% of the planet, contains more medicinal species than any other place on Earth. Yet we destroy it faster than we study it, burning the very pharmacy that sustains us. When a tree falls in the Amazon, we lose more than wood. We lose a library. Inside its leaves may lie the next cure for cancer or the next antibiotic for resistant bacteria. Every extinction erases not just a species, but a possibility, a sentence torn from the Earth's script of survival. To protect forests, then, is to protect our own future. Indigenous people have always understood this reciprocity. To harvest a plant, they first ask permission. To take a root, they leave seeds behind. Healing, they say, must never be extraction without offering. When you take medicine from the earth, you owe it care in return. Perhaps if modern civilization relearned this lesson, both body and planet would heal together. In the old apothecaries of Europe, shelves overflowed with jars of dried flowers, lavender sage, rose valerian. The scent inside those rooms was both wild and sacred. Even now, when you open an herbal shop, that same fragrance greets you, a reminder that the boundary between science and magic has always been porous. The Earth's pharmacy is both laboratory and cathedral. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture a healer's hand sorting leaves on a woven mat. The light outside is gold, the air filled with the sound of wind moving through trees. The hands crush a sprig of mint, release its cool aroma, mix it with honey. Someone nearby breathes easier. Somewhere far away, in a lab filled with glass and metal, another healer isolates that same molecule, gives it a name, and continues the same work. Two worlds, one origin, the soil. And perhaps that's the truest medicine of all remembrance. To remember that healing begins in relationship, that wellness is the harmony between human and leaf. The cure is not only in the plant itself, but in the respect we give it, the awareness that we and the green world are partners in survival. So the next time you sip tea, crush an herb, or breathe in the scent of pine, pause for a heartbeat. You are participating in a ritual older than humanity, the ceremony of life, caring for life. When you walk through a forest, what you see above ground is only half the story. Beneath your feet lies a hidden world more vast and intricate than any city ever built. A web of roots, fungi, and microorganisms that connect every tree, every plant, every blade of moss into one living network. The forest you stand in is not a collection of individuals. It is a single breathing organism, a great green mind that thinks in silence and remembers in soil. This underground system is known to science as the mycorrhizal network. Thin threads of fungus, some no thicker than a strand of hair, weave through the earth, linking one tree's roots to another's. Through these threads flow messages, nutrients, warnings, and gifts. Sugars from a sunlit maple might travel to a shaded seedling, struggling in the shadows. A birch, under attack by insects, may send chemical alarms that prompt its neighbors to strengthen their defenses. The network distributes knowledge and energy like blood moving through a body. When scientists first discovered this communication, they were astonished. They injected carbon isotopes into one tree and found traces appearing in another meters away, as if the forest itself were whispering, "Here, take what you need." The more they studied, the clearer it became that the network behaves intelligently, allocating resources, prioritizing survival, and maintaining equilibrium. The forest in essence manages itself without leaders, without orders, guided only by the quiet laws of cooperation. At the center of many of these networks stands a mother tree, the oldest and largest individual, whose roots stretch farthest and deepest. She feeds her offspring and distant kin alike, sending extra nutrients to saplings that share her DNA, and sometimes to unrelated trees that help sustain the canopy. When she dies, her stored carbon and minerals are released back into the web, nourishing everything around her. Her death is not an ending, but a transformation, her wisdom redistributed through the living soil. To walk through such a forest is to step into a vast conversation, centuries in progress. Each fallen branch, each mushroom, each whisper of wind carries information. You are surrounded by communication so subtle that even silence is full of meaning. The rustle of leaves above may mirror the hum of exchange below, sugars, flowing electrical pulses flashing like neurons through the earth. It's not an exaggeration to say the forest has a nervous system. Its roots transmit signals at measurable speeds, using chemical and electrical cues that resemble thought. Some researchers call this the wood wide web. Others prefer more poetic terms, the underworld network, the whispering soil. Whatever the name, it reveals something profound, that nature thrives not through competition as we once believed, but through connection. The forest is not a battlefield, but a family. If one part suffers, the others respond. When drought hits, trees share water through capillary pressure. When disease spreads, fungi isolate infected zones, protecting the rest. Even dead wood plays its part, becoming habitat and nourishment for new life. Nothing stands alone. Every blade of grass, every fern and fungus belongs to a single story told in countless voices. Indigenous cultures understood this truth long before microscopes confirmed it. They spoke of the Earth's roots as veins carrying the planet's lifeblood. In some Native American traditions, cutting down a tree without ceremony was considered an act of blindness, harming not just one being, but an entire web of relatives. Modern science, in its way, now agrees damage one part of an ecosystem, and the effects ripple across continents. When you stand beneath an old forest, you are standing inside an ancient intelligence. The air feels thicker charged, as if listening. Your footsteps send vibrations that travel down through layers of soil, through roots and fungi, announcing your presence. The trees know you're there, not in thought as we know it, but in awareness. Some even alter their chemistry in response to human breath, absorbing carbon dioxide more quickly for a few minutes after we exhale. The forest, it seems, is always listening, always adjusting, always alive to company. It's humbling to realize that this network also exists within us. The same logic that binds the forest governs our own bodies, cooperation, exchange, balance. Our lungs branch like trees, our neurons connect like fungal threads, our blood carries messages like sap. We are not visitors in this system, we are expressions of it, another pattern in the endless fractal of connection. When you next walk through the woods, imagine the web beneath you. See the invisible filaments stretching out in every direction, connecting trunk to trunk, root to root. Picture the mother trees, whispering encouragement to their children, the fungi ferrying nutrients like patient messengers. Feel the hum in the ground, the pulse of exchange flowing under your shoes. That's the heartbeat of the planet, ancient, continuous, and kind. And in that moment, if you listen closely, you might hear something like a thought rising from the soil. You were never alone. The forest has always been here, holding you, in its network of care, waiting for you to remember your place among its roots. If the earth were a cathedral, the plants would be its architects, patient builders who have shaped the air, the soil, and the water since time began. Their designs are not carved in stone, but woven in green, invisible to those who move too quickly to notice. Yet everything we know, the mountains softened by moss, the rivers shaded by trees, the very clouds drifting overhead, carries the touch of plant life. Without them, this planet would be a silent rock spinning through the dark. Plants do not shout their achievements, they build through balance. Over billions of years, they transformed volcanic chaos into blue skies. They pulled carbon from the atmosphere and locked it into roots and stone, cooling the planet enough for oceans to settle. They anchored soil against the wind, turned deserts into gardens, and sculpted the pattern of rainfall through their own exhalations. Each leaf, each blade of grass, is an architect's brushstroke in a living masterpiece that never stops growing. Look closely at a forested mountain range. From above, rivers, snake-like veins, trees cluster in spirals that mirror the curves of weather systems. This is design born of patience, a geometry not imposed but evolved. Plants create microclimates, pulling moisture from the air, shading their own seedlings, inviting animals to carry their seeds farther still. A single grove can summon rain. A continent of forests can shape wind and temperature. Through them, the earth learns how to breathe evenly. In tropical rainforests, massive trees lift water high into the sky through transpiration, the release of moisture through leaves. This vapor forms clouds that travel hundreds of kilometers before falling again as rain. In this way, the Amazon feeds not only itself but distant lands. It is said that the forest makes its own weather, and in a sense it's true. It has built an atmosphere out of generosity. When the green canopy shrinks, the air grows dry. Rivers fade. Balance falters. The architects never meant their work to be undone so quickly. But plants are not only engineers of air and water, they are sculptors of light and time. Consider a desert cactus shaping its spines to cast precise shadows that protect its core from the sunday, or the alpine flowers that bloom only when the snow melts, measuring each season like clockmakers. Even the smallest patch of moss on a stone changes the way moisture clings, the way life returns. Every plant, no matter how small, adjusts the flow of energy across the surface of the earth. This quiet architecture continues in every corner of the biosphere. The grasslands of Africa keep the climate steady by reflecting sunlight. The kelp forests of the ocean cradle entire ecosystems feeding fish and sheltering seals. When a storm passes, it is the roots of mangroves that hold the coastline in place. When a city feels unbearable in summer, it is trees that cool it, lowering temperatures, purifying the air, softening the harshness of concrete. Even the weeds breaking through cracks in pavement are architects in miniature, reclaiming what was lost. It's easy to forget that our own bodies are the continuation of their work. The calcium in our bones once flowed through the sap of ancient plants. The proteins that form our muscles began as sugars spun by photosynthesis. Every structure we build, every thought we think is powered by sunlight translated through leaves. Architecture, whether made of steel or chlorophyll, is always an echo of theirs. Ancient peoples revered this. The Druids built their temples in oak groves, believing that wisdom resided in the trees. In Hindu philosophy, the earth's form is sustained by Prithvi, the living ground, her body clothed in green. And in the legends of many indigenous tribes, the first humans were shaped from maize, wheat, or clay, mixed with plant life. The message repeats: plants are not decorations on the world. They are its foundation. Modern ecology now reveals the same truth in data. The planet's carbon balance depends almost entirely on vegetation. Destroy too much of it, and climate tilts. Nurture it, and equilibrium returns. A healthy forest can store billions of tons of carbon, filtering it slowly into the soil like a deep breath released over centuries. Reforestation is not just a moral act, it's a mathematical necessity, the restoration of the planet's architecture to its rightful form. And yet the gentleness of plants should not be mistaken for weakness. Their patience is power. A tree can split stone by growing through it 1 millimeter at a time. A single seed light as dust can topple mountains through persistence. Plants conquer without conquest. They teach that true strength is steady, silent, and enduring, the kind that rebuilds the world simply by existing. Close your eyes and picture the Earth, as seen from space, a marble of blue and green floating in darkness. Every patch of color you see is their work: forests, breathing oceans, blooming with algae, grasslands waving in the wind. The architecture of life glows softly against the void. And though we call it our home, it is in truth theirs, the home they built and allowed us to share. Perhaps the lesson they offer is this: to create without destroying, to build in harmony rather than dominance, to understand that every act of making must also be an act of care. We too are architects of this planet now. The question is whether we will build as wisely as the plants have. So the next time you walk beneath a canopy of trees or touch the edge of a leaf, remember that you are standing inside a cathedral, older than history walls, made of air pillars of woodlight, filtering through green-stained glass. The architects are still at work, quietly shaping the world beneath your feet, asking only that you notice and protect the masterpiece they've begun. There's a moment in every day when light and shadow meet, not in conflict, but in conversation. It happens at dawn, when the world exhales the last of its dreams, and again at dusk, when day bows to night. In those minutes, the air seems to hold its breath. The trees stand motionless. Even the birds pause. You can almost hear the earth resetting its heartbeat. This is the stillness that plants understand better than any of us. The sacred pause between growth and rest, motion and silence, life and reflection. We live in a culture that praises movement, ambition, bloom. But the green world reminds us that stillness is also a form of strength. When winter comes, trees do not mourn the loss of their leaves. They turn inward, storing energy, trusting the cycle that has carried them through countless seasons. Beneath the frost, the roots hum, softly gathering water, holding warmth. Nothing in nature is ever truly idle. It only changes rhythm. To watch a forest at dusk is to glimpse that rhythm. The sun slips behind the hills, and the color of the leaves deepens into bronze and blue. The light filters through branches like slow liquid, glinting off dew that hasn't yet formed. You can feel the temperature drop, not sharply, but with ceremony. The plants respond instantly. The stomata on their leaves close, conserving moisture. Their metabolism slows. Yet paradoxically, life feels more alive than ever in that calm. The stillness isn't emptiness, it's concentration. The whole forest is listening. Plants exist in a constant dance between light and dark, and they need both. Sunlight gives energy, but shadow gives form. Without shadow, there's no direction, no rest, no coolness in which roots can breathe. Humans too are creatures of this balance. We crave brightness, success, joy, productivity. Yet without quiet, we burn out. Like the trees, we need seasons of retreat to gather strength. It's not laziness to pause. It's wisdom. The ancient Taoists called this balance the yin and yang of the world, the ceaseless alternation of opposites that sustains life. Plants embody this perfectly. In sunlight, they transform light into sugar. In darkness, they transform sugar into growth. One phase feeds the other. You can't have one without the other, just as no day exists without the night that follows it. If you sit long enough beside a tree as dusk deepens, you begin to feel that exchange within yourself. Your breathing slows. Your heart finds a slower rhythm. The noise of thought quiets, and you realize that peace isn't found in the absence of movement, but in moving at the same pace as the world. The mind is a restless creature, but the body, like a plant, knows how to align with the cycles of the earth. All it needs is stillness to remember. There's a phrase in Japanese ma, meaning the space between things. It's not emptiness, but fullness. The meaningful pause that gives structure to sound, light, and time. In music, it's the silence between notes that makes melody possible. In art, it's the blank space that allows form to breathe. In life, ma is the stillness that allows everything else to exist. Plants live entirely within this principle. Their growth depends on invisible pauses, the still night after the bright day, the dormancy of winter after the exuberance of summer. They don't fear the dark seasons because they trust that the light will return. Maybe that's what peace really is: trust. The knowing that cycles always continue, even when we can't see the next sunrise yet. The forest doesn't rush towards spring. It lets the snow fall, the frost linger, the rivers sleep under ice. And when the time is right, the smallest shoot pierces the soil without noise or drama, a quiet declaration that the world still turns. We could live that way too if we chose. If we allowed ourselves moments of real stillness, mornings without urgency, evenings without noise, we might remember what it feels like to simply exist, to breathe without chasing, to let the day fade without fear of what comes next. The plants have known this forever, that peace isn't something to achieve, but something to allow. So tonight, if you can step outside, look at the silhouettes of trees against the darkening sky. The last light touches their crowns like a blessing before disappearing. The air cools. Somewhere, a leaf falls. And in that tiny sound you can hear eternity, the endless exchange between sunlight and shadow motion and rest. You don't need to control it. You don't even need to understand it. Just breathe with it. Because in that stillness between the day that ends and the one that has not yet begun, you are home, as every tree, every blade of grass, every living thing has been since time began. The earth speaks in seasons. You can hear it in the rhythm of rain, in the hum of insects, in the soft crackle of frost underfoot. It's a voice so ancient that our ancestors built their lives around it, planting when the soil softened, harvesting when the air turned, gold resting when snow covered the ground. Plants, of course, are fluent in this language. They listen not with ears, but with roots, reading the subtle grammar of temperature, moisture, and light. To them, time is not a line, but a circle, a song that repeats forever, changing only in tone. Each season writes a different melody. Spring begins softly in the key of green. The first shoots rise through the mud, stretching toward the warmth they've been dreaming of all winter. Buds swell, birds return, the world exhales. It's the season of courage, the willingness to grow again despite the memory of cold. Then summer comes, a great crescendo of color and sound. Flowers blaze, leaves unfurl, rivers sparkle. The air hums with photosynthesis, the chemical hymn of life in full bloom. Every plant is singing, feeding on light. Then slowly the song changes. The notes deepen slow and soften into autumn. Leaves blush with pigments they'd hidden all year, reds, golds, amber, colors that have been there all along, waiting for the chlorophyll to fade. Trees begin to release what they no longer need. They let go of their adornments gracefully, not in despair, but in faith. They know that what falls will feed the soil that sustains them. Their surrender is not an ending, but a gift. And then comes winter, the pause in the music, the silent rest between movements. To human eyes, it looks like death, bare branches, frozen earth, quiet fields. But underground, the roots are busy. They are drinking the melted snow, storing sugars, strengthening their grip on life. The seeds that seem lifeless are only sleeping, waiting for the right cue to wake. Winter is the Earth's deep breath, a reminder that silence is not emptiness, but preparation. Plants read all these transitions effortlessly. They feel them in the tilt of sunlight, the chemistry of rain, the length of a shadow. Even in glass buildings or crowded cities, houseplants adjust their rhythm to the changing year. When you watch their leaves droop in winter or surge in spring, you are watching time itself in motion, the living pulse of the planet translated into color and form. We humans once moved with that rhythm too. But modern life, with its clocks and calendars, has blurred the edges of seasonal awareness. Artificial light stretches our days. Screens erase the dusk. We forget that the body still carries those cycles inside it. Our energy rises and falls with the year, just like sap in a tree. That's why in spring you feel restless, eager. In autumn, reflective. In winter you crave stillness. Your cells remember what your mind has forgotten. You are made of the same earth that turns through the seasons. To live in harmony with those cycles is to live with less resistance. When spring calls, begin again. When summer shines, work and celebrate. When autumn comes, release what no longer serves you. When winter falls, rest. You don't have to fight the cold or mourn the darkness. Every phase carries its own medicine. Plants embody this truth with such grace. They never rush through the seasons. They don't try to bloom in December or cling to their leaves in November. They trust the timing. They know that life is a series of openings and closings, of growing, giving, and letting go. In that trust lies peace. The ancients honored this wisdom in festivals of light and harvest. The Celts marked the solstices with fire. The Japanese celebrated the fleeting beauty of cherry blossoms to remember the impermanence of all things. Even now we feel those echoes. The joy of spring flowers, the melancholy of autumn twilight, they move us because they remind us that everything we love is temporary and therefore precious. If you step outside and stand still long enough, you can feel the turn of the earth. The air smells different. The light changes color. Somewhere, a leaf detaches a seed, falls, a new bud forms. The seasons aren't just weather, they are the earth breathing in and out. So tonight, as the cycle turns once more, take a breath with it. Feel the season you're in, not just outside your window, but within yourself. Are you in a time of blooming, of shedding, of resting, of awakening? Each stage has its own beauty. Don't rush it. The plants never do. Because in the end, peace is not a destination, it's rhythm. The steady turning of the world, the endless dance of warmth and cold light, and dark beginning and end. The same dance that every tree, every leaf, every breath has joined since the first dawn. And when you listen to it, really listen, you can hear the quiet assurance in the wind. Everything returns, everything belongs, everything is enough. Long before the first human walked, the earth rain was already writing stories, not on paper, but on soil, stone, and leaf. Every drop that falls carries a memory of ocean, of cloud, of mountain, of the breath of trees. When you listen to rain, you are hearing the planet remember itself. Plants know this sound better than any creature alive. They wait for it, listen for it, live by it. For them, rain is both music and messenger, the voice of renewal returning home. The relationship between plants and rain is one of the oldest and most tender on Earth. When the first mosses crept from the sea 500 million years ago, it was rain that allowed them to live. Water became their bridge between worlds, between light and dark air, and soil, root and sky. Every green thing since has kept that covenant. Each drop that lands on a leaf begins a chain reaction. Pores open cells, drink roots, stir. What looks like a simple shower is actually a ceremony of awakening. To the human eye, rain seems chaotic, 1,000 threads of water falling at random. But to a plant, every drop has purpose. The first droplets trigger scent molecules in the air, the earthy perfume we call petrichor. That aroma isn't just nostalgia, it's communication. It signals to seeds and roots that the dry season is ending, that it's safe to grow again. Within minutes, dormant roots rehydrate microscopic fungi, awaken, and a quiet hum of activity ripples through the soil. In tropical forests, the rhythm of rainfall defines everything. Leaves are shaped to shed or capture water trunks, streak with channels that guide it downward. Some plants even sing when it rains, releasing bursts of oxygen and scent in response to the drumming above. The rainforest doesn't just receive rain, it creates it. Trees release moisture through transpiration, which rises to form clouds that return as storms. Each drop that falls may have begun its journey from the breath of a leaf. The forest waters itself in a cycle of generosity. There is wisdom in that exchange. Plants never hoard what they're given. They drink what they need, then pass the rest along into rivers, into air, into the roots of others. Water moves through them like memory, through a mind carrying traces of every life it touches. The raindrop that nourishes a seed today may have fallen centuries ago on the skin of a fern, or the shell of a sea turtle, or the open palm of someone long gone. Rain unites time as well as place. In deserts, rain is a promise so rare that plants have learned to wait with devotion. Some seeds remain sealed for decades until the first true storm arrives. When it does, they awaken in hours, bursting into bloom across the barren sand. For a few brief days, the desert becomes a living mosaic of color and fragrance. Then the flowers die, leaving behind seeds that will sleep until the next rain, a rhythm of patience that spans centuries. There's something holy about that patience. Plants don't curse the drought, they trust the cycle. They understand that the absence of rain is not abandonment, only preparation. The same faith is hidden in every green thing, the quiet belief that nourishment will return when it's time. Humans could learn much from this. We chase constant abundance, fearing the pauses. But life, like weather, depends on balance. The heart too needs its seasons of drought and renewal. Have you ever stood in a storm and felt calmer, not afraid? That's because rain resets more than the soil. It resets the mind. The negative ions in storm air quiet the nervous system, while the rhythm of falling water syncs with our heartbeat. The same pattern that soothes a leaf soothes us. When rain falls, the world exhales, and we remember even for a moment how to let go. In many cultures, rain is sacred. The Yoruba people of West Africa call it the blessing of the sky god. In Japan, farmers once offered rice wine to the rain spirits at the start of each planting season. The Navajos sing to the rain as if greeting an old friend. Always the emotion is the same: gratitude. Because rain is more than water. It is memory returning to the earth, the proof that nothing once given is ever truly lost. Close your eyes and listen to it now. You can hear its stories in the rhythm of the drops, the soft patter on leaves, the deeper drum on earth, the high hiss on stone. Each sound tells a different part of the tale. Together they form a song of movement, connection, and rebirth. The rain does not choose where to fall. It gives itself freely to everything: the tallest tree, the smallest seed, the waiting dust. When it stops and the world gleams with freshness, plants stretch their leaves upward in silent thanks. The air smells like beginnings. You breathe, and somewhere deep in your chest, you feel the echo of the same gratitude, because you too are made of rain. Every tear, every heartbeat, every cell in your blood once drifted through the sky as cloud. So the next time the world darkens and thunder rolls, don't hide from it. Step outside. Feel a drop on your skin. Remember that this is the planet's oldest conversation: water falling earth, receiving life, beginning again. The plants are listening, the roots are singing, and the rain patient as time keeps the story going.